All right. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good evening tonight. Let's see. All right, now that it's turned on. As we wait around and give some more people a chance to show up, I'm going to put some music on while I do something real quick and then be right back. Get to the show soon enough. I'll be right back. And I'm back. I'm back. And better than ever. I'm slack. You're gonna pay, and everything is okay. You're gonna pay. Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. Come on, Scooby Doo, I see you, pretending you got a sliver. You're not fooling me, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to solve, so Scooby-Doo, be ready for your act. Don't hold back, and Scooby-Doo, you're gonna have yourself a Scooby snack. That's a fact. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We're ready and you're willing. We can count on you, be Scooby-Doo. You know we'll catch that villain. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, looking for you. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? Over here. All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby, Scooby-Doo. Hey, Scooby, where are you? Over here. Scooby-Doo. Shaggy's gonna help you. Scooby-Doo. Let's see. What else? Get along, gang, get along, gang. Each one is special in their own way. Coming about a get along, gang, get along, gang. Get up with a get along, gang. Even then it's okay. Get up with a get along, gang. Oh, get up. Let's see. Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. He loves and dances every day. Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time. From the town of Bedrock, there's a place that a history. With the family just down the street, Rudolph, courtesy of hair off, courtesy of Fred's old heap. When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time, a dabba do time. We'll have a gay old time. Let's see what else. Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife. Space Ghost. Let's see. They're dashing, they're daring, courageous and caring, faithful and friendly with stories to share. All through the forest they sing out in chorus, marching along as their song fills the air. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplane. It's a duck blur. Might solve a mystery or rewrite history. DuckTales, woo. They'll be waiting, I'll be waiting. DuckTales, woo. You've been waiting, I'll be waiting. DuckTales. And in the danger out to find you. When you grab onto some DuckTales, woo. Gotta know the on DuckTales, woo. Sometimes some crimes go slipping through the cracks, but these two gumshoes are picking up the slack. No case too big, no case too small. When you need help, just call Chip-and-Dale's Rescue Rangers. Chip-and-Dale's Rescue Rangers. And when you know that red and white and blue, Chip-and-Dale's Rescue Rangers. Chip-and-Dale's Rescue Rangers. Red and white and blue, Chip-and-Dale Rescue Rangers. Chip-and-Dale Rescue Rangers. Chip-and-Dale. Let's see, where are we at now? Let's see. Okay, we're at 8.5 minutes, so I guess right now would be a good time to go over what's on tap for tonight. So we've got 6 stories, all from Bounding into Comics. Actually 4 comics related and 2 anime related. Among the stories we're going to, of course, talk about tonight, we're, of course, revisit the situation with the Netflix Sandman series, as apparently somebody is accusing Neil Gaiman of missing the point as he responds to accusations that he went woke with the Netflix series. Also, we're going to talk about another pretty infamous interview, another case of a woke creator going after fans. You know, this is another interesting little aspect. Is Watchmen creator Alan Moore says that adults who enjoy superhero media are engaging in a kind of infantilization that can very often. Basically, he's calling those who adults who enjoy superhero media baby fascist. That's essentially what it boils down to. Also, let's see, Titan Comics has some art for a first issue of a Western Kamen Rider comic they're coming out with. Let's see, what else? got an interview with Graham Nolan, so that's all the comic stuff. And then on the anime side of it, let's see. Original creator Suzuki Nakaba confirms Grudge of Edinburgh films. So there's a link between a couple of different animes there. And Black Clover, the latest Black Clover film, confirms its next worldwide release date. So, as I said, we got 6 articles to go over tonight. And as usual, of course, we'll do the wrestling roundup. Wrestling roundup. We got this day in each history. So with that, let's see, where are we at now? We're at the 10 minutes. So why don't we go ahead and get started then? Okay, about to start. All right. So, anyways, all right. So let's get into this then. Okay, the Sandman creator Neil Gaiman misses a point while responding to accusations he went "quote unquote" woke with Netflix series. Article by Spencer Piccoli. This was published this past Friday on the 7th, October 7th. Of course, that was my birthday, so. Missing the point of fans' various criticisms against Netflix's live-action adaptation of his seminal comic book series, Neil Gaiman has responded to accusations they went woke, in small quotes, with its production by pointing to the fact that the original books he, quote, wrote 35 years ago, unquote, were, quote unquote, woke. Gaiman offered his thoughts on the pushback to his, quote, as inclusive as possible, unquote, production philosophy for Netflix's The Sandman during a recent interview with the radio branch of British news outlet The Times, the aptly named Times Radio. And then, according to the tweet here, quote, that's not political correctness. That's just treating other people with respect. And that was a quote that was attributed to Neil Gaiman, described being called woke for his work in Sandman on Times Radio. So, as seen in a clip shared by the outlet on October 5th, which was last Wednesday, Gaiman opened the discussion by asserting, quote, when people are accusing me of being, quote unquote, woke for Sandman stuff that I wrote 35 years ago, it's like, yes, unquote. Quote, I remember when they called it politically correct, unquote. He then continued, quote, and then you talk about political correctness gone mad, unquote. Quote, and I remember once reading a book where they started talking about political correctness and the fact that you could no longer make jokes about people's ethnicity or religion in the same way, unquote, the author further recalled. Quote, and I thought, in smaller quote, Well, actually, that's not political correctness. That's just treating other people with respect. Mm-hmm. In light of this revelation, said Gaiman, quote, I started changing things, unquote. Quote, so I just think, okay, instead of political correctness gone mad, that is treating other people with respect gone mad, unquote, he explained. Quote, and I would love to just sort of substitute to have a little thing on my computer that substitutes the word woke whenever it turns up with, quote, just treating other people with respect. Yeah, I think he is kind of missing the point. The point is that the whole point of it is that people who are woke aren't treating other people with respect. Okay? That's the point. Alright, so let me get back to this then. Alrighty then. In light of this revelation, said Gaiman, quote, okay, actually, down here. He then turned to expound on the topic of how, quote, it's the idea of escapism and the fact that you have given people with a book something to escape to. You've given them people who they know, unquote. Quote, I get now the storied recounted to Radio Times. Quote, as an elderly author, I get adults, particularly women, coming up to me and saying, small quote, I read Coraline as a girl, and it got me through really hard times. Got me through. Okay. I think it's supposed to be it got me through, not my through, me through abuse. So there's a little typo there. It got me through breakups. It got me through very bad places. And I would think to myself, well, Coraline can get through her story. I can get through mine, and I would go back and reread it. Unquote. Okay, well that might be that might be true there, but I don't think Coraline was going in the process. I don't think she was saying that men bad, men evil. You know, she may have been pointing out, there are times that some men may act evil, but it's not like blanketing them as a whole. Quote, okay, in this case, with this book, I gave people a place to go, unquote, he added. Quote, I gave them Coraline as a person who may not ever have existed in real life, but she existed in their heads. And I gave them very literally escape and perhaps in some cases gave them tools to fight back or ways not to be afraid when they'd finished escaping. When they'd return from the book, he included. Quote, and that's very real. Now, that part of it, I think we can all generally agree with. That part of it, I think what a lot of people are upset about with Sandman, though, is that they've gone overboard. They're not doing it to make the story better. They're doing it to check off the boxes. I mean, I was watching a video from the Quartering earlier where they were talking about, of course, they were talking about the Velma situation, the HBO Max series coming out from Mindy Kaling, where the whole idea you can either write a good story or you can check all the boxes, but you can't do both. Anytime you try to do both, it fails miserably. So I think the point that a lot of these people are missing. As noted above, Gaiman's rebuttal misses the core of the issue that accusations of woke were founded upon. The core issue of fan complaints was not that the original series was, in small quotes, progressive, or in smaller quotes, respectful in its treatment of its various characters, but rather that the author had given in to the trends of race and gender swapping in casting the long-awaited adaptation of his beloved series. That was the point. In other words, again, I think, and they articulated that very well there. In other words, the fans' core issue is that he could have kept the characters as they were and still got a story across, and it still would have been a great story. And they wouldn't be complaining about it as much. But he decided to give in to the Twitter mob, and decided to race and gender swap many of the characters. It's just one of those things that if you do that, it's not going to be a good thing. There's the whole get woke, go broke bit. So, anyways, further, it seems odd that Gaiman would miss the source material respecting point this bad. Whether intentionally or otherwise, in light of his own admission during his interview with Radio Times that Coraline was, quote unquote, very real for its fans. If something is, quote unquote, real to a fan, it seems to reason that they would not take kindly to having the image that has been painted for them for years, roughly 33 in the case of the Sandman, forcefully drawn over by controversial modern mindsets. But it's true. I mean, think about it from this perspective, okay? Many of the fans who are complaining, these characters they connected with these characters. Okay, on some level, these characters are real to them. They connected to them. And all of a sudden, you're going to change these characters into completely different people just because you got a small minority on Twitter screaming diversity, diversity, diversity. That kind of knee-jerk reaction is stupid. Just sheer stupidity. And he shouldn't have given into it. And that's why he's getting the criticism and backlash for it. Because he gave in to the stupidity. Let's see, continue on. Ultimately, whether Gaiman ever has time to earnestly engage with his critics in between accusing those who have taken similar issue with Amazon's Lord of the Rings of Power outright racist, quote unquote, remains to be seen. All right, and there we go with that one. All right, so we're done with that. I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. So this right here will be the next article we do. But I do have to step away from the computer. Oh, there you are, RJ. The Netflix Sandman series is as close as they can legally get to the comics, but all the swaps cumulatively only serves to take the viewer out of the story. Yep, that does sound like a good point there, RJ. Anyways, I'm sorry, I do have to step away from the computer for a quick moment. I'll be right back, but I'll leave some rock music on for you to listen to. RJ, I hope you'll stick around because I'm about to get into this story about Alan Moore when I get back. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Alan Moore has been 70 since he was in his 40s. Oh, that's kind of an interesting take there, RJ. Uh, uh, and thank you for the like and share, by the way. Alright, so anyways, um, let's get to this article now because this is one I felt like, and RJ, hopefully we can get some more because that would be very interesting to see how some of our other pals think of this one because this is just another way that you got a woke creator trying to go after after fans here. So let's get into this. Watchmen, in smaller quotes, creator Alan Moore says adults who enjoy superhero media are engaging in a quote kind of infantilization that can very often be a precursor to fascism. Article by unquote article by Spencer McCooley. And it came out yesterday. Now, basically, to basically sum it up, this woke creator is basically telling fans that if they're into superhero media, they're a bunch of baby fascists. That's, I think, what it boils down to, more or less. If you're into superhero fantasies, if you're into superheroes as an adult, you're a baby fascist. But let's see further what he has to say here. So, making his latest trip out of his self-imposed semi-exile to criticize the current state of the industry. Iconic comic book author Alan Moore has expressed concern over adults actively enjoying comic book media as he believes them to be engaging in a quote kind of infantilization that can very often be a precursor to fascism. Oh my goodness. This hermit's coming out lecturing people about being baby fascists. Oh my goodness. I wonder if this guy's sitting home in his little hovel, clutching his copy of Mein Kampf. It's what he kind of reminds me of here, even after that first paragraph. It's like some little hermit. Let's see, RJ, what are you saying here? Moore has been upset with America over Watchmen ever since he discovered that his intended villain, Rorschach, was seen as the hero, while his vegan pacifist hero, Ozymandias, was the villain. So that's his bitter beat. Again. Let me say this one more time here, just so RJ you can hear it, and anybody who happens to be watching the read. My guess is this guy, because you look at him, if that is at the top what we saw, if that's a picture of him, I imagine this guy. I guess he reminds me of Herman the Hermit from Yogi's First Christmas, right? Oh, hermit who's like in his little cave there, But in this case, this hermit, Alan Moore, is probably sitting there rocking on, maybe in his rocking chair or in his bed or something like that, just clutching onto his copy of Mein Kampf. You guys don't. Mein Kampf is, I think, the Karl Marx book I'm referring to. So. So, anyways, let's get back to this. The legendary Watchmen and Batman, The Killing Joke scribe, reaffirmed his disdain for the comic book industry's current direction during a recent interview given to The Guardian in promotion of the upcoming publication of his first story collection, Illumination. Wow, he's actually upset with the comic book industry for what they're doing right now. I would think with what the mainstream comic book industry is right now, he'd be jumping up for joy based on some of the things that we're seeing here. He'd be the same kind of like shill like Kevin Smith and Neil Gaiman have become. At the Mein Kampf was Adolf Hitler's autobiography. Okay, well, thank you for correcting me on that. Thank you for correcting me on that, RJ. But basically, I think you still get the point, though. Regardless of what it actually was, I'm sure that especially knowing now, I'm sure Alan Moore is probably clutching that book like it's something else. But all right. Anyways, getting back to the article here. Back to the article there. Speaking to one of the stories included therein, what we can know about Thunderman, Moore described it as a quote unquote good riddance to the industry before turning to assure the Guardian Sam Leith, quote, I'm definitely done with comics. Really? Really? I'm surprised. I would think he'd be all over this current state of comics. I would figure he'd be jumping in the pool with the rest of them. Based on what we're hearing thus far. Quote, I haven't written one for getting on 5 years, unquote, he added. Quote, I will always love and adore the comics medium, but the comic industry and all of the stuff, attached to it just became unbearable. Okay. To this end, Moore explained that he took particular issue with how the demographic of the entire medium has shifted from young boys to grown adults, as he found it odd that, quote, hundreds of thousands of adults, in brackets, are lining up to see characters and situations that had been created to entertain the 12-year-old boys. And it was always, emphasis Moore's, boys of 50 years ago, unquote. Okay. Let me address that. Okay. I can tell you just from looking at some of the first off. Let me tell you this: comics, believe it or not, were not always. Not all comics were intended for children, and they were not always targeted for children or kids, or even, if you want, or make more specifically, 12-year-old boys. Okay. I can tell you throughout the Golden Age, they had a number of different genres, the superhero genre being the most well known to us. But you have a bunch of other genres genres of comics that were equally geared towards not just young boys, but young men, women, and all the kind. You had romance comics, you had Western comics, you had your action adventure type comics. Okay, you had your police noir, you had your you had your horror, your sci-fi. So his whole thought process that comics are only for kids, and that even superhero comics are just for kids, is a little bit ridiculous. Because a lot of these adults who are who are still into these superhero comics, that that he's decrying, a lot of these adults who are in it are either those who grew up reading the comics in the first place and still enjoy them today, or kind of like in my situation, they grew up watching the cartoons that were based on the comics and wanting to go back and relive that experience. Okay? Adults can want escapism too. Sometimes it is a matter of going into another world and making connections with those characters. Sometimes it may even be going back in time to make those connections. So his underlying core thought process there, that comics are just for kids, is quite honestly a little narrow-minded. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the stuff that's coming out right now is really stuff that that really people are wanting to read either. Okay, the whole idea of having an agenda pushed in lieu of a good story, also gets people upset. And the thing is, kids are still buying. Now, granted, kids may not be buying Western comics anymore because maybe they like Japanese manga better. I know Yellow Flash has talked about this. Actually, if anything, manga is actually selling better than Western comics in a lot of cases, because kids are kids are, like the manga's better, But the whole notion that comics is solely RJ, you still here? All right, well, we're back up. Okay. Guess you are still here then. Yeah. I was worried because I thought maybe you left me there, RJ, because my viewer count only got down to 1 there. Thought maybe you took off there because I was still covering Alan Moore here and making some points here. But basically, yeah, I think his whole idea that comics is only for kids or for like preteens or whatever is a little narrow-minded. But anyways, moving on with the article here. Quote, I didn't really think that superheroes were adult fare, continued the From Hell creator. Well, what about those adults who grew up on those superheroes who still believe in a lot of the same values that those heroes upheld? A lot of the same values those heroes upheld. You think that just because they become an adult, they should abandon the superheroes and everything the superheroes stood for? If this is a little bit of like saltiness, if this is a little, as RJ pointed out in the comments earlier, if this is a case of more being salty because people did not accept his idea of what a hero was, that's on him, Sorry that you couldn't make your hero compelling enough for people to want to rally around him. Okay, that's not that's not that's not their fault, that's their taste, but let's see. Quote, I think that this was a misunderstanding born of what happened in the 1980s, to which I must put my hand up to a considerable share of the blame, though it was not intentional when things like Watchmen were first appearing. Unquote. Yeah, so he's basically gonna blame the Watchmen debacle on fans. Okay. Quote, there were an awful lot of headlines saying, in small quote, comics have grown up, unquote, he recalled. Quote, I tend to think that no, comics hadn't grown up. There were a few titles that were more adult than people were used to, but the majority of comics titles were pretty much the same as they'd ever been, which, in a way, that's true. Because as I said, and as everybody knows, I have my fair share of knowledge on Golden Age because we've gone back to it. I myself looked back at some of DC's earlier history, right? Even before I've done the historical comic retrospect, you all watch Friday night, okay? Not all, even going back to the Golden Age, not all the comics that were published were you could argue were necessarily being directed for kids. A lot of them were, yes, but the superhero comics, and and when we get to some of them, you will see what I mean. There are some pretty dark stuff in some of his early stories of some iconic heroes that you all may not know or even remember. In fact, one of those we will probably be seeing this Friday night on the Historical Comics Retrospect. So, Mr. Moore, I think you are a little narrow-minded. Let's see. Quote, it wasn't comics growing up, unquote, opined Moore. Quote, I think it was more comics meeting the emotional age of the audience coming the other way, unquote. And again, one of the points I want to make here is that a lot of the same adults that he's attacking are probably adult fans who grew up watching or reading the comics. So they were reading the comics as, as you would say, 12-year-olds, and continued reading the comics through high school and into their young adult lives and into their adult lives. And they still, to this day, still love comics to a certain extent. Maybe not as much, depending upon their ideological bent, maybe not as much now as they used to, because of the agenda pushing, depending upon who's doing the reading. But, the cannibalism of modern culture by superhero fare was particularly worrying to Moore, as he believed this widespread fanaticism towards characters and stories intended for children was served as the perfect primer for the acceptance of general fascism. So basically, so in that right there, it sounds like he's making the argument Dr. Worthen made about Superman back in the 40s. Everybody remembers how we got the Comics Code Authority, right? Sounds like Moore is taking a page out of Dr. Worthen's book. When Dr. Worthen was making the argument that one of the problems with comics back in the 40s is that Superman was a fascist. You know. And then, All right, well, anyways, getting back to the article here. Let me just. Are you catching something? Catching something? Are you catching something? Are you getting something, Carmen? Anyways. Anyway, so Anyways, continuing on with the article here, we're coming up on 50 minutes now. Let's see. Quote, I said round about 2011 that I thought that it had serious worrying implications for the future. The millions of adults were queuing up to see Batman movies, unquote, stated more. Um, quote, because that kind of infantilization, that urge towards simpler times, simpler realities, that can very often be a precursor to fashion. It sounds like he's definitely a pro commie. Anyways, in support of this argument, Moore noted that, quote, when we ourselves took a bit of a strange detour in our politics, unquote, with the 2016 election of Donald Trump as president um, of the United States, most of the major films at, at the time were ones based on superheroes. Strange detour in our politics. I'm thinking that's code for the fact that people wanted to get back to constitutionalism. That people wanted to get back to what our how our founding fathers thought of what the country should be. And now, of course, you have the entire political establishment and mainstream media trying to keep Trump from running again, and people are just not going to have it. Such as Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, Deadpool, and Captain America: Civil War, which again, led to a lot of the ideals of liberty and personal freedom, of the government staying out of our lives. Closing out his thoughts on the topic of comic books, Moore was asked by Leith how he felt about the Guy Fawkes mask used by the titular protagonist of V for Vendetta. Um, to which the bearded writer replied, quote, I can't endorse everything that people who take that mask as an icon might do in the future, unquote, of course. Oh, of course. But I'm heartened to see that it has been adopted by protest movements so widely across the world, unquote. Quote, because we do need protest movements now, unquote, he concluded, quote, probably more than we've ever done before. Okay, but what you're calling for then, what you're talking about there is protest movements that eventually lead to revolutions, like the American Revolution when America got away from, English rule, right? Alan Moore's Illuminations hit shelves on October 11th. All right, anyways, finished with that article. I'm going to actually have to step away for a moment because it sounds like my dog is barking again. Gotta tend to her, at least check what's going on. All right, next. be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah. So, all right. So, anyways, getting ready to move on to the next article here. Let's see, where are we at now? Just coming up on an hour, 59 minutes. So, coming up on an hour here. Okay. Taking some good time here. Titan Comics reveals interior and cover art for first issue of Western Kamen Rider 01 comic book series. Spencer Bakuli, article by Spencer Bakuli, published yesterday, October 10th. Progress Tobia Garis Rising Hopper. Much like how a jump to the sky turns into a rider kick, the previously announced Kamen Rider 01 Western comic book series has made the leap from concept to reality as publishers Stonebot Comics and Titan Comics have officially revealed the interior and cover art for the series' first issue. First unveiled at San Diego Comic-Con 2021, the eponymously titled Kamen Rider 01 is an original comic book series set in the series universe. Set to be penned by Brandon Easton, who I guess did a Mass Mobile Armored Strike Command comic in 2016, Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy television series, and um, illustrated by Henry Prasetya of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fame. Aruto Hideo's next fight will see him wield his signature Hiden 01 driver against the original villain Rider known only as Ragnarok. Quote, Aruto Hiden is Kamen Rider 01, unquote. Appropriate exclaims the series official solicit. Quote, along with his trusty Humgear companion, Izu, he saved the world numerous times as the insectile superhero. Quote, but when his company, Hidden Intelligence, is attacked by the mysterious Ragnarok, unquote, it continues, quote, Aruto must not only face the volcanic cluster cell powered villain, but also his own past, unquote. According to a further note by Titan Comics, that the series is chronicling, quote, the further adventures, unquote, of Aruto and Izu. It seems Kamen Rider 01 will be a direct continuation of the original TV series. However, whether this means Easton and Parasitia's series will pick up immediately in the aftermath of Aruto's defeat of Horobi, as seen in the series finale proper, their respective futures, or after the events of Aruto Izu's team upping as Rider 01 and 02 to stop worldwide terrorist attack, as seen in the film Kamen Rider 01 Real Time, remains to be seen. Kamen Rider 01 will also be offered with a total of 5 different covers, including one featuring the work by I guess artwork by In-Yuk Lee. Another by Derek Chu. There's some two from Nahuel Grego, whose cover will receive both standard and glowing in the dark variants. Yeah, I think that would look pretty cool with a glowing in the dark cover. And a photo variant featuring a live action shot of Toei's original Kamen Rider 01 Valkyrie and Vulcan suits. And there you go, right there. Fans can add their brightness to the world alongside Aruto when the franchise's first official Western comic book outing hit shelves on November 23rd. So that's going to be on a Wednesday. Oh, there we go with that one. See if anybody's back with me yet. Alrighty then. So, anyways, with that. About to go over. Alrighty then. Continuing on here with the article. All right, so here we go. Interview. Graham Nolan's The Ghost of Mate Kumbe Key is quote unquote linchpin to his comic book Nolanverse. Article by Paul Hare, published earlier today, October the 11th. All right, Graham Nolan's The Ghost of Madakumbe Key is the graphic novel that will, quote unquote, clearly tie together his other creator-owned comic books and the crowdfunding campaign for the comic smashed through its initial goal within the first few days. Founding into Comics recently spoke with him about his latest work and more. Featuring Misty, Meathead, among others, I guess. Nolan set an initial goal of $500 for the Indiegogo campaign for the graphic novel. As of this writing, which is about halfway until the end of the campaign, it's over that goal by more than 10,000%. Wow. Which means readers are clearly looking forward to it. The Ghost of Madakumbe Key takes place, quote, in the sweltering heat of the Florida Keys, brackets, and the dead are returning, unquote. Present day crimes help uncover the crimes of the past as private investigators Misty Fahrenheit and Mike Rutowski work to solve them. Misty Fahrenheit. That's a very interesting name to have. Very weather related. Very weather related name to be had. It's zombies and mystery combined into one exciting 64-page plus graphic novel. On top of all this, Nolan executes both writing and illustration duties. He also will publish it through his own brand, Compass Comics. So, if you're a fan of Graham Nolan, this is definitely okay. This is definitely something you'll want to check out. All right, so here's the interview part. See if anybody else is joining me here. Nope, not yet. Bounding into comics. Is there anything more you'd like to say about the ghost of Marekumbe Key, other than what is on the Indiegogo page? Graham Nolan. Crimes of today lead to the discovery of bodies from the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, awakening the souls of the dead. Private investigators Misty Fahrenheit and Mike Meathead Rutowski are called in to solve the mystery and help the dead to finally rest. This book is the linchpin that will clearly tie together the Chinu, Alien Alamo, and my other creator-owned project. So it looks like Nolan has his own Nolan verse going here. Huh? Sounds interesting. Bounding into comics. How would you describe your Nolan verse of comic books for those unfamiliar with it? And do you have plans for it to continue indefinitely? Graham Nolan replies, Compass comic books and the quote-unquote Nolan verse are built around adventure, horror, sci-fi, and the supernatural. I currently have no plans for superhero comics. The Compass Comics brand is about entertainment first. No political polemics or social box checking, just fun comics about characters you care about. Sounds pretty straightforward there, even with black and white art there. Interesting. Bounding in comics will Nolan verse comic books always feature fantastical or horror elements, or are you planning stories that are grounded in reality as well? Graham Nolan. I think all my comics are grounded in reality. Horror, sci-fi, and the fantastic are backdrops to the reality. Without characters grounded in reality, readers will never believe the fantastical elements you try to put before them. In Alien Alamo, the sci-fi elements were secondary to the relationship between a father and a son, while the father is trying to deal with his PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder. In the upcoming The Ghost of Matakumbe Key, the ghost story aspect wraps around modern-day murder and crime and a mystery. What is your long-term plan for Compass Comics? Graham Nolan. 2023 marks the 25th year of my company, and which started with the publishing of Monster Island. I am in it for the long haul. I want to continue to write, illustrate, and publish my own work and concepts, and I'm doing the best work of my career. Counting and accounting. You've had success with crowdfunding, but it's also a lot of work and forces you to act as a product fulfillment organization, as well as a comic book publisher. Has it been worth it? And do you plan to continue with crowdfunding? Graham Nolan's response: yes, it's a lot of work. I am writer, artist, publisher, art director, marketing director, shipper, fulfillment agent, and many other things involved with the production of these books. Is it worth it? Absolutely. I'm in complete control of my work, my career, and my destiny. I answer to no one but the backers and fans. Crowdfunding is a paradigm shift in comic book publishing. Creators are no longer beholden to the monopolistic system that keeps Marvel and DC as the beneficiaries of the artists and writers' ideas and concepts. As the big two continue to stumble and cling to their old ways, we crowdfunders, and particularly CG, Comicsgate, are paving the way towards freedom and ownership of our IPs and building audiences who are craving good, fun, entertaining comics. Rounding into comics, where can people follow you online? I'm at gnolan12 on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, YouTube, and IGG. And don't forget to visit Compass Comics. And also, you can catch Graham Nolan as a regular panelist on EBS's streams as well. On EBS's Comicsgate Kings streams. Head on over to the Ghost of Made Kumbe Ki Indiegogo page for more information on the campaign and to contribute to it. All right, so done with the comics portion of the articles. We have a couple of anime articles to go through. Get to those in a moment here. And this will be our next article. If anybody's even here. All right, I do need to step away from the computer again for a moment. I'll be right back. Alright, anyways, now moving on to the anime part. Yeah, as I said, a couple of these, and then we go back to Howard 2014. Just still making some notes of each thing there. Alright, so as we get into some of the anime articles here, original creator Suzuki Nakaba confirms Grudge of Edinburgh films are quote unquote missing link between quote Seven Deadly Sins unquote and sequel quote Four Nights of the Apocalypse unquote. Article by Nerdigan published earlier today. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know if anybody actually. Let's see. Spoiler warning ahead for those not caught up with the Four Nights of the Apocalypse manga. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we don't do spoilers here, so I'll have to forego that story tonight then. Yeah, we don't do spoilers here. So we'll move on to the next article then. Alrighty then. Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King. Film releases, new teaser, confirms worldwide release date. Article by Nerdigans Inc. October 11th. Anyway, okay, so October 11th being today. So, all right, so the wait may have been grueling after a year and a half silence following the initial announcement. Eager fans have finally received more information about the long-awaited Black Clover movie. A new bevy of information was revealed on October 6th, which is last Thursday, beginning with the reveal from the official Black Clover Twitter account of both the film's official title, Sword of the Wizard King, and a new teaser visual drawn by original series mangaka Yuki Tabata, featuring protagonist Asta kneeling alongside one of his signature anti-magic swords. Next, the film received a new teaser trailer courtesy of Netflix Anime. And in addition, Netflix Anime debuted a new teaser trailer for Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King. The first portion of the trailer gave a brief recap of events that occurred in the anime adaptation of Tabata's manga thus far. Beginning with a recap of the Black Clover anime, the trailer soon moves to hint that at least some of the film's plot will take place during the period before Julius Novachrono's coronation as the Wizard King, as he is seen in the trailer, both clad in his Grey Magic Knight uniform and lacking his six-pointed swallowtail mark. Following the unveiling of the film's title and its eponymous sword, the trailer treats fans to a taste of the power key magic wielded by Sword of the Wizard King, primary antagonist, and Nova Corno's Wizard King predecessor, Conrad Leto, who in Japanese is voiced by Toshihiko Seki, who was a Japanese voice for Muzen Kibutsuchi in Demon Slayer. Raising his hands to the sky, Leto summons a large weapon as he declares, quote, "This is the day that I will change this kingdom," unquote. For fans wondering if the events of Black Clover Sword of the Wizard King will be canon to the original manga, Tabata confirmed via the film's official website that, quote, "This movie is a story about a magic king that I was wondering whether or not to do in the original story," unquote. So this does seem, so I guess what he's saying there is that this might be kind of like an alternate universe type of scenario. Quote, "And I was asked to make it into a movie," he added, in brackets, "with the film, quote, I will be able to enjoy the large scale and flash battles between Asta and its powerful enemies." Based on the mangaka's comments, it seems that Sword of the Wizard King will not be considered canon since the events of the film do not affect the main continuity of the Black Clover manga. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like it's an alternate universe type of situation. Kind of a what if, what if scenario almost. So, given the events of Black Clover's final arc thus far, it is, in my personal opinion, that the exploration of Julius's past in the film being rendered non-canon is a missed opportunity to connect the Devil hosting families of Black Bull's vice captain, Captain Noct, and a member of the Faust family, to the Zogratis family of the Spade Kingdom. I'm 44 for a moment. Anyway. This is particularly disheartening as, like One Piece Film Red and Dragon Ball Superhero, Sword of the Wizard King story and overall production is being directly supervised by its original mangaka, thus providing an easy opportunity for Tabata to canonize his cut material. However, on the bright side, Netflix has no plans to lock the Black Clover film away in its notorious, quote unquote, or in smaller quotes, anime jail. Rather, in a first for an anime movie on their platform, Netflix will distribute The Sword of the Wizard King worldwide on March 31st, 2023, the same day as it hits Japanese theaters. And there we go with that one. So we're done with all the articles. We're done with all the articles there. Alrighty then. Let me just. All right. So, anyways, so now let's see. We're at an hour and 33. Okay. So with that now, let's go ahead and move on to some of the wrestling recap. As of course, Raw was last night. We have Dynamite tomorrow night, so we do have some WWE and AEW news to kind of go over. And first off, on the WWE side of it, we've been seeing a number of returns lately in the WWE. Bray Wyatt came back at Extreme Rules. It's also been rumored that his brother Bo Dallas, aka Taylor Rotundo, will be returning, maybe playing one of the roles of the Wyatt Six, the life size characterizations of the characters from his Firefly Funhouse gimmick. Let's see. Also, we saw, we saw DX have a somewhat of a reunion last night. Of course, the late China not there, but X Pac name dropping her as part of the festivities, as well as Billy Gunn not being there, as he's of course contracted to AEW. But the members of DX who were there were, of course, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, X Pac, and Road Dogg. Who are all now employed. Again, Triple H has his group there, in various capacities. Shawn, of course, heading up NXT. Road Dogg handling road shows, house shows, as it were. So, and I did hear recently that X Pac was also involved in. And on last night Raw, we saw a couple other interesting returns. Brock Lesnar came and beat up on Bobby Lashley for getting revenge from Lashley's win back at Royal Rumble, which left Lashley vulnerable to Seth Rollins coming out to basically challenge and win the United States Championship from Lashley. And a lot of people are believing this is believed to be a work towards the idea of a Brock Lashley match coming up soon here. Also, the Judgment Day story continues to move forward as on a couple of fronts there. Dominique Mysterio continues to go darker and darker, berating his dad Ray, saying that he's tired of being his father's shadow and all that. But also, in a conversation with AJ Styles did acknowledge that he needed backup. However, that backup was not in the form of Judgment Day, as making their return to the WWE, the Good Brothers, coming off of some recent runs in Impact Wrestling in New Japan. As Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows came in to back up AJ as they cleared the ring of the Judgment Day. That feud is going to be interesting. It's members of the Bullet Club taking on Judgment Day here, and even though I don't know if they'll actually acknowledge themselves as part of the Bullet Club faction while in the WWE, but everybody I think is well aware of the Bullet Club faction that's based over in Japan. Jay White, the leader of the group, who I mentioned the other day, or yesterday in fact, as he just celebrated his birthday. So this is going to be a very interesting feud to keep an eye on. There's also some talk that Liv Morgan, following her loss to Ronda Rousey, may end up joining back up with Bray Wyatt, as she was seen smiling, laughing as she tapped out to Rousey, and then in a later segment we're seen in a quote unquote dark place backstage after the event. So that story will also be looking to move forward a bit. And it looks like in the Bloodline storyline, it looks like Jey Uso and Sami Zayn are taking over a lot of the storyline there in terms of terms of Sammy trying to ingratiate himself to become part of the Bloodline. On another note, Rikishi, WWE Hall of Famer Rikishi, has been asking the WWE to possibly sign his nephew Jacob Fatu, who's currently under contract with, with Major League Wrestling. Um, hope to bring Jacob to up, up to a major company. Some of you may remember maybe a few months back, Jacob had actually challenged Josh Alexander for the Impact Wrestling title. Came up short in the event, but again, seeing another member of the Noe family, Noe Fatu family, um, coming into WWE might be interesting. And that I would think is about all I have on the WWE side of things. Um, I'm gonna go upstairs for a few minutes and then I'm going to bed. I'm locking the front door, but you're not going anywhere, right? All right. So with that, we do have some AEW news to go over a little bit here, as as um, as of course tomorrow night, AEW for the next couple of nights live will be on on Wednesday and Thursday night. Will be up in will be making their first trip up to Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And on tomorrow's night's Dynamite, from what I've seen, the main event that is going to be Chris Jericho defending the Ring of Honor Championship, Bryan Danielson in the third match of their series. Luchasaurus will be taking on Jungle Boy, and Billy Gunn will be taking on Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland challenged Billy Gunn last week. Billy Gunn accepted. Also, one of the other possible matches I heard might be happening as well is, from what I saw when I was watching Elevation last night, is a possible women's tag match that might pit current AEW interim women's champion Toni Storm with Hikaru Shida taking on Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. As this multi-woman feud is continuing on, and in that match you're gonna have three. You're gonna have the current interim women's world champion and two former AEW World Women's Champions involved in that matchup. Now I don't know what this is going to do for Athena. If she's going to kind of go back into the background a little bit, because Athena was filling in for Shida while she was gone. Now, mind you, Shida made her return on Elevation. Now, technically, Elevation was taped last Wednesday. As part of the taping package they do on Dynamite. So she technically made her return then, but of course it wasn't broadcast until last night on YouTube. So that's going to be, and I think on Friday they had a dark taping. The first of the dark episodes that was taped this last Friday, I think, will be airing on tonight's YouTube. And then of course I think Rampage this week. Rampage will be live, but it won't be on Friday. Normally Rampage is on Friday, but I think due in part to the playoffs the Major League MLB playoffs going on, they decided to make it. Actually, no, it is okay. So it actually is going to be taped for Friday, but it's going to be taped on Thursday. So Rampage will still air on Friday, but it'll be taped on Thursday. So that's what we have for you there. So, anyways, any other news to talk about? Not that I can think of. I've already talked about some stuff going on Impact. So, with that, I guess it would be a good time to start winding things down a bit here. Um, so today being Tuesday, um, today being Tuesday, um, today being Tuesday, October the 11th, 2022. Why don't we go ahead, take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history? History! So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of this. First off, I'm going to head back 25 years ago today. As on this date, 25 years ago today, Deke Productions' version of A Christmas Carol would premiere on this um, date back in 1997. So 25 years ago today, Deke Productions' version of A Christmas Carol would premiere on this date. I believe in theaters. And it would feature, of course, the voice talents of Tim Curry as Ebenezer Scrooge, Whoopi Goldberg, Ed Asner, and Michael York. So on this date in 1997, 25 years ago today, Heat Productions' version of A Christmas Carol, based on the 1843 novel by Charles Dickens, will be premiered on this date back 25 years ago today. Moving on to the next piece in Heat history. On this date, 16 years ago today, back in 2006 here, the 30th issue of Firestorm the Nuclear Man went on sale on this date back in 2006. Story was In My Father's House Part 3, written by Stuart Moore, with Jamal Yassine Eagle doing and Stephen Sadowski doing the penciling. Inking was Keith Champagne. Lettering done by Ken Lopez and coloring by David Theron. This is now they changed the title to Firestorm and Nuclear Man. This is started out as just simply Firestorm. This is volume 3 of Firestorm. So on this date, not 15 years ago today, Firestorm the Nuclear Man number 30 went on sale on this date in 2006. So here we go with that one. And finally, all right, so let's see. We have one more piece of Nietzsche history to look at here. On this date in 2007, the second season of Genshinken from ARMS premiered on this date in 2007. So on this date in 2007, the second season of Genshinken from ARMS Studio premiered on this date. Basically, it's an anime about a comic manga club, or I'm sorry, a college manga club. So on this date, 25 years ago today, the second season of Genshinken went on, premiered on Japanese television on this date. So with that, guys, I thank you all for being here. Now, don't forget, of course, this Friday we will be starting our coverage of June of 1939, going over comics that went on sale from DC Comics. Of course, among the features we'll be reading will include Superman, Batman, Sandman, among others. Let me see. Also, Rick Piper will be joining me as co-host that night. So I hope you guys will pop in for that. Also, prior to that, I did a recording on RJ's channel earlier today. So prior to that, look for a premiere episode leading into my show on Critical Blast, in which I did an interview with RJ, talking about how I put the Friday shows together a bit and what goes into that. Granted, we got a little bit more into the content than I intended, but still an interesting thing to talk about. As I said, I did talk a little bit about, you know, the mindset of how I make my choices of what stories to read and all that. So with that, I hope to see you guys there. I hope to catch you guys on the premiere episode. I'll be there, of course, to answer questions during the premiere. And I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow night. All right. So until then, bye.